Do you have executive level aspirations? I always felt that an IT director had this sort of flair and prestige, some sort of panache, if you will. I wasn't even sure what an IT director did, but that didn't stop me from wanting to be one. Fast forward to now, and I'm a director of software engineering and systems development. What do I think of the position? How would I describe it 1 year later? Let's back up a little so I can give you some background. This may help you relate or perhaps open your eyes if you're in a similar position. I've been in tech for a long time. I came up through the ranks, peaking as a senior engineer or subject matter expert or what have you. In fact, my last title was a senior cloud solutions architect or something like that. Basically, I was a high-end tech guy, but starting to approach that glass ceiling. At my employer, we were going through a digital transformation. We were transitioning to modern architectures, frameworks, methodologies, and tooling. That was precisely why they brought me in. They were going through their cloud migration to AWS, and as a cloud solutions architect, I was able to hit the ground running. Within a year and a half or so, we were able to get the bulk of the work done. But we had moved so far, so fast, that we had stretched the limits of our IT staff. I remember a specific conversation I had with my boss at the time. I told him that I was ready to take a step back from the keyboard. I felt like this would give me greater impact within the organization. He agreed, and I was promoted to DevOps manager, tasked to build the fledgling DevOps program. Prior to this, there was no DevOps program. And to put things in perspective, I managed only one team member, me. As I said, it was a fledgling program. So now I was a manager, but I was still doing engineering work. Luckily for me, I'd been a DevOps engineer at a previous company, so the work itself wasn't foreign. In fact, that previous experience helped me as I interviewed candidates and so forth. It helped me recruit and mentor people as I worked to build the team. So in that respect, the team was able to move quickly. So after 6 months or so, I felt like there was a clear path forward. So put yourself in my shoes for a moment. We went from nothing to something in a short period of time. And as you can imagine, I was pretty full of myself. I was proud of what we had accomplished. My confidence was an all-time high. So when our director of software engineering departed, I saw it as an opportunity. Who cares that I was only a manager for 6 months? You can only miss the shots that you don't take. And for me, I tend to swing for the fences. I set up a call with the CTO and told him that I was the right person for the director job. I gave him an offer he couldn't refuse. And no, we're not talking about mafia tactics. I basically told him that I was hungry to make a difference. I talked about our successful DevOps program and how I could do the same as a director. Basically, I highlighted my potential while downplaying the risk. After all, if I succeeded, he would get the credit for promoting me, and if I failed, well, he would be the one to let me go as a sort of failed experiment. But to my surprise, he gave me a shot. I was the new director of software engineering and systems development. Talk about jumping into the deep end of the pool or into the lion's den or whatever you want to call it. Now I was playing with the big boys. I ran the DevOps team, the development team, and the development support team. But what do I know about being director? I just became manager 6 months ago. I basically went from high school to the pros. But I'm still here a year later, so I didn't get fired. What did I learn this last year? Let me start by saying this. Being a director was much tougher than I expected. I know it may not look like it, but trust me, it is. I remember the first few months being extra tough. Whether you got there through a promotion or through an interview, you have no clue what you're doing for that first 6 months. You're the escalation point for issues, yet you're still running around trying to figure things out. There's no such thing as a 40-hour work week when you're trying to ramp up. I work to build relationships with other teams and other business units, but think about it from their perspective. I came out of nowhere. I was untested. Why should they trust me? Even closer to home were my teams. Okay, I knew the DevOps team, but why would the developers trust me? I was their new leader, but how was I going to command their respect? That's when I had that aha moment. Trust. Trust is the key. I had a vision for where I wanted to take my teams, but that meant working closely with other teams and other business units. In order to lead, you must have the trust and respect of your peers. I had to figure out a way to earn everyone's trust, and I needed to do this as quickly as possible. From the dev team's perspective, they saw the previous director's departure as a shakeup. They saw it as uncertainty. How did they know their futures were secure? Were they going to lose their jobs next? I had to prove to them that they were vital to the enterprise. But without that level of trust, why would they believe me? I was in a tough spot. No one trusted me, and rightfully so. If you ever played sports, you've heard the saying that winning cures all things. So that's what I set out to do. Win. And that was a message that I delivered to everyone. We needed to start winning. With that in mind, I reached out to some business units and asked them what their pain points were. What could my teams deliver in order to ease that pain? Then I worked with my teams asking how could we deliver to help those other teams. This helped the development team to think about solutions rather than problems. This helped us move forward. We were able to start building again. Then once we delivered that first solution, we started cementing our reputation. Don't forget, my developers were unsure if they were going to have jobs. But if they were developing and could see the path forward, well, that puts everyone at ease. I promised them that we would start building, and we were. I kept my word, not only with my developers, but also with the business. We were able to deliver solutions. People knew that I do as I say and say as I do. In other words, I was able to build trust within my team and the teams around me. I can't stress how important it is to have the confidence and respect of those around you. Reflecting back on my first year as director, I was fortunate to recognize how important my teams were. Think about it this way. A team of all-stars will always outperform, regardless of who the manager is. But no manager in the world can coach a team of misfits to a championship. So with that in mind, I set out to build my teams. I like to think I'm a great manager, but let's be honest, I was still pretty new. Wouldn't it make sense to coach a team of all-stars? So the first thing I did was reach out to others within the organization, people that I would want to work with, people that I held in high regard, people that I thought would be a good fit for what we were trying to accomplish. I was able to bring some of those all-stars to my teams to bolster and add talent to the crew. Then I went after a top-tier development manager. It took several months to find someone, but I wouldn't settle for just anyone. I would need to rely on this person to take the development pressure and the development work off of my shoulders. You have to realize that up until that point, I had been wearing two hats, one as a development manager and another as director. It's no easy task. As you can imagine, having too many things on your plate will guarantee that you deliver poorly across the board. I was keenly aware of that, and that's exactly what I didn't want. I was able to suck it up until we hired that manager, but don't expect to do that for long periods of time. That 3 to 4 month period was grueling. But that hire has already paid dividends. He's already made additional hires to bolster his team. He's also leading some of our key initiatives. That's freed me up to focus on the big picture. But we wouldn't have got here without key partnerships from other teams. As I look back to a year ago, we were in the midst of our agile transformation. As an organization, we were trying to transform the way we worked. Some of us had experience working in Agile, but trying to make that uniform across all of IT is no easy feat. We were able to partner closely with our project teams, and they provided stellar Scrum Masters to help manage our initiatives. In no time, it seemed like we were making a difference. Using Agile was starting to work. If I were to sum up last year, it would come down to building trust, building an all-star team, and then leveraging key partnerships to help us move forward. We're in a completely different place now than we were a year ago. You could say that last year was sort of a rebuilding year, but we were successful. Now we're excited for what the future holds. I'm finally able to focus on the whole picture. I can rely on my managers to drive the vision. During that rebuilding process, I didn't have the time to focus on the bigger picture. I had to focus on getting the teams to where they needed to be. As a byproduct, other teams and other leaders saw what I was able to accomplish. Remember that trust I mentioned earlier? This success pushed that trust and confidence throughout the organization. Now other teams wanted to work with us to shape their projects. My audience and influence has expanded. I routinely have conversations with executives within our organization and with other companies. Now I'm able to do the job that's expected of me as a director, which is to define the initiatives that need to be delivered by my teams. Now I'm able to focus on things like budget and resources. In fact, resource allocation, along with metrics for data-driven decisions, has become some of my top priorities. But this last year has taught me the difference between control and influence. When you're at the bottom looking up, you see upper management as the people in control. And I used to think the same thing. However, that isn't altogether true. The truth is counter to what you believe. The higher up you go, the less control you have. You have more influence, but less control. Think about it. As director, I rarely put my hands on the keyboard to solve problems. I have to rely on my managers and teams to get things done. So they are the ones in control. They don't have as much influence, but they have more control. It's strange how that all works out, but when you think about it, it makes so much sense. The more my influence grew within the organization, the more I realized it, the more I positioned my teams to win. This was an intense growing period for me. You wouldn't expect a promotion to feel like a completely new job, but that's exactly what this was. I went from being a high-level tech guy to a guy managing technologist. They are two completely different things. So while I was inexperienced at first, I was good enough. Then I went from being good enough to competent to successful. Like I said, I didn't get fired. It takes about 6 months to a year to get fully immersed into a position like this. Now that I'm past that, I have big things planned for the future. So for those aspiring directors out there, I hope I've provided an insight to what it's actually like and how it is now, a year later. But if you want to hear what it took me to get here, watch this video where I lay out my entire journey.